Enviar nota de voz al group chat. Buenos días, ¿quieren desayuno de McDonald's?
Guille dice, eres la mejor. Un sausage McMuffin, please. Laura dice, sí, sausage McGriddles para mí. Ale dice, ya comí, pero me traes un hash browns, love you.
Mi colega favorita, Jill. Llévate todos tus favoritos de desayuno como un sausage McMuffin por unos pocos dólares, solo en el $1, $2, $3 menú de McDonald's. Precios y participación pueden variar, no puede ser combinado con un combo meal.
It's time for the Ian Furness Show.
You want me to turn it up?
Send your text to 49451 on Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
All right, here we go. Wednesday edition of the program. Ian Furness with you. Kevin Shockey is hanging out across from me right now. Where are you at, sir?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm in the Redbox producers booth, and Redbox has the newest movies fresh from the theater for under $2 a night. So head to the box or stream on demand.
Exciting stuff. Let's get to headlines.
Now, from the Star Reynolds Sports Desk, your 950 KJR Sports Headlines.
Headlines this hour brought to you by Venue Kings, VenueKings.com. Mariners announced that they have extended the contracts of both general manager Jerry Dipoto and manager Scott Service. Dipoto also getting a bump in a title. He is now president of baseball operations. So that happened this morning. More on that a little bit later in the radio show.
That means we have to use different music. Now we have to play Hail to the Chief when he comes on the air.
That's the last thing we're going to play, man. You go to the playoffs and we might actually give you some respect. Until then, you get none. Service, on the other hand, boy, what a job. What a job he has done. And there were a lot. Remember when he got hired? It was like, oh, this guy doesn't know. He can't be the manager.
He was unproven, that's for sure.
He has really, really kind of taken that and run with it. Good for him. All right, speaking of baseball, if you're the general manager of the Mets, it just feels like it's going to be a bad year for you.
Holy cow.
Zach Scott is their interim GM. He was arrested on a DUI charge. Not hanging out with the team right now while Stephen Cohen, the owner, and others decide what to do with him. Jeez, good year for your friends, the Mets, huh?
I feel terrible for them. I'm so sorry, Rap.
Jacksonville is going to host the Packers and the Saints in Week 1. Instead of being in Texas, they're going to play in Jacksonville, armpit of America. Of course, the Saints displaced because of the hurricane situation down there. Joel Embiid says, you know what? I love playing with Ben Simmons. Don't worry about trading him. We're all good. Things are kumbaya here. Do you believe it, Kevin?
I mean, I believe
yes
Joel.
no?
Yes, I believe Joel means that, yes.
Do you think Ben Simmons is happy?
No, and I don't. You know what? If you want out, then F off.
All right, I love that.
I'm done with him.
A ton of Seahawk moves. Let's get to those right now as we start the radio show, because they just announced their practice squad as well. So we'll just go through yesterday's cut down day. Finally heard about what they did late in the day, and since then they've made more moves. Today they claimed a couple guys off waivers. Center Dakota Shepley, waived by the Niners. Cornerback Nigel Warrior, a waive by Baltimore. To make room on the roster, the Seahawks waived guard center Phil Haynes and released quarterback Sean Mannion. There's rumors that they're going to sign Jake Luton, the former Oregon State star. So those are the moves for the active 53-man roster. Let's go through the list of the players signed today to the practice squad. They signed 14, which I believe that means they have a couple spots left. Defensive tackle Miles Adams, linebacker and Aaron Donker. He's the kid from Germany. Guard Greg Island. He's actually a tackle. I don't know why they list him as a guard. He played tackle all camp. Former Husky Aaron Fuller, who is a wide receiver but gives you some security at the kick return position because he can do that. So does Penny Hart, who was on the roster last year. D-tackle Jared Hewitt, who had a really nice camp and a strong preseason. He's on the practice squad, as is wide receiver Cade Johnson. Running back Josh Johnson had a nice camp as well and was your leading rusher in the preseason, and he showed some stuff on Saturday. I think we were all like, can he do something? Yes, the answer is yes. So now they have six running backs in that running back room. The Canadian from Le Quebec, Pierre-Olivier Lestage, the guard, is signed. Tight end Tyler Mabry. And here was let me give you three others. John Reed, cornerback. Cody Thompson, wide receiver. Linebacker John Radigan, we talked about him yesterday with Greg Bell. He's the kid that's the West Point grad, so his military service is deferred for now.
Do you think he went to the team and was like, can you please just get me on the practice squad so I don't have to go serve?
Hey, man, I know that we're kind of out of Afghanistan, but are we really out of Afghanistan?
Like,
how about just give me a month or two?
Hey, I'm even just saying, like, I'll even give back half the pay. Can you just help me out here?
Actually, I don't want to diminish it because I think what John Radigan, going through that in that school, and I got great respect, and being a student athlete at the same time.
For sure. I'm just saying, like, man.
Hey, you know what? NFL practice squad or go in the military right now today with the world the way it is. Yeah, I'm staying here. So Radigan's there, Cody Thompson, John Reed I mentioned as well, who was traded for by the Seahawks to get from Houston. And how about this? Robert Kemdichi is on there as well.
On the practice squad.
Well, I'm not so sure that's not another guy that they didn't just kind of hide a little bit in with numbers. Kemdichi's a guy, and by the way, we got a big show today. Mike Holmgren coming up at 2, and then we'll check in with Steve Palazzolo here in just a few minutes. I think Kemdichi is a guy that they may have just kind of not played in the preseason. And they wanted to see more from him. They wanted to get him going a little bit. But there's no tape on him for the last 24 months. So I like this move. I know he was comfortable here. I think there's an upside and a ceiling there that's higher than most of the guys they have on that D-line. I like it. I think that's a sneaky fun move, and I like how they executed. There is zero chance you would ever mention the fact that you did that. But I think they kind of let him fly under the radar, and they wanted to get him to the practice squad. They want to get him. I don't know if he's totally in game shape. I don't know if he hasn't played football in 2 years. But I like that move. I like Kemdichi because I wanted to see him on this roster because I think he can give you a lot down the road. So, you know what the other thing I like, Kevin, real quick before we get to Steve? I love the fact that they have all their own guys. Like guys they had in camp. Oftentimes, I'll look at that practice squad roster.
They kind of cherry pick.
And it's like 7 or 8 guys from elsewhere. It's like, no, you had these guys all through camp. You know what they can, and that tells you they did a pretty good job of bringing guys in.
Or at least they feel good about they feel good about what they have. And it's I bet they must have been thrilled when they changed the practice squad rules.
Oh, it's the best thing. It's the best. Well, Pete's talked about that.
Yep.
And I think every coach is. Joining us on the Beacon Plumbing Hotline right now, he is going to be with us each and every week. Brought to you by our good friends at No Lie Brewing, No Lie Brew House out there in Spokane, Washington, located on the Spokane River. In fact, I will be there, Kevin, Friday at 1 o'clock p.m.
You're going to be 3 sheets to the wind. You're not even going to know what day it is, but you know what time it's going to be. If you were at Buddy's, it'd be 4:20.
It would be at 4:20, but I'm going to be there on Friday. And no, I will not be because I got to head out to Whitworth University afterwards for the big football game after. And, tailgating there is a little different.
You want to be able to see 56 if he's out there.
I would like to see that. He'll be on the sideline at least, if nothing else. All right. Steve Palazzolo joins us, Pro Football Focus right now. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back, of course.
I appreciate it. We're looking forward to these throughout the year as well. Boy, cut down day. That's got to be just a quick housekeeping thing for you guys. That's got to be a hell of a day for you in terms of like moving guys' names around all over the place.
Yeah, we have a full team of guys, keeping track of the roster moves and, putting them on the website, but just making sure our internal depth charts and all that stuff are updated. Yeah, a lot of moving parts, and I don't like guys getting cut. I like the fact that teams can be smart, though, and pick some people up or continue their team-building efforts. But it's good to see the season in sight now.
Steve, let me I want to kind of go through and hit on some guys. And I'm looking – if people are looking at PFF.com right now on the roster – I'm assuming I'm looking at last year's numbers, right? I'm looking at all these like Russell Wilson, 6 of 38. These are all last year's numbers I'm looking at.
Yeah, if we're doing any sort of ranking or anything like that, it's based off last year's.
Okay. Let me start with Sidney Jones because that was the one that kind of, when they made a move and picked up Sidney Jones, it surprised me because from what I had read, he didn't have a good year last year. And yet I look at the numbers for PFF, and his coverage grade's a 71.3. That's a good grade. His overall grade was a 68.1. Again, pretty solid player. I was surprised if based on your numbers, that's a sneaky nice pickup for Seattle.
Yeah, I think so because it's one of those. He's one of those players. He gave up a few big plays, but early on, the Jaguars' cornerbacks were really bad for much of last year. And every time you watch them play, it'd be like, oh, Sidney Jones, he's making plays. He wasn't in a great situation where they had a great pass rush or anything like that. And he's also a guy, a lot of times the pedigree, the draft pedigree sticks with players. Right or wrong, it sticks with them. But he was a second-rounder who just got off to a slow start with injuries and all sorts of stuff, kind of slowing his career down at the beginning. But he's had his best 2 years, the last 2 seasons. So when you talk about a one of those low risk, high upside type of moves. Sidney Jones heading into year 5 in his career. I like it. Again, it doesn't mean he's Richard Sherman or anything on the outside. It just means, hey, could be something here, because he's definitely turned things around after a really slow start in his career.
Well, as we look at Seattle's roster, we talked about this in the offseason. DJ Reed, now they flip him over to the left side, to the left corner. That basically makes him kind of your number one cornerback in a lot of ways. And then it's, whether it's Jones, Witherspoon, Flowers, whoever ends up being on that right side, I assume, first of all, Jones, he's a boundary corner, right? We're not looking at him in the slot.
Yeah, he's definitely best on the outside for sure.
Witherspoon last year hasn't looked great in the preseason, but I don't know. I mean, judging by what I just watched in this preseason, I don't know what you can judge. But to be honest with you, I mean, it was just an absolute gong show with what teams are doing. But Witherspoon, you had him rated as an 80.9 in coverage, limited snaps last season. I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy they're going to go with to start. But give me a little thought on Ahkello Witherspoon.
Yeah, so corner is definitely one of those positions where you need to take as big of a sample size as possible, because general production and general results, or grading in particular, can really fluctuate in those small samples. So Witherspoon was fantastic last year on those 210 coverage snaps. He was really good as a rookie in 2017, good solid grade. The 2 years in between, 18 and 19, over 400 coverage snaps, he was not as good. So it kind of lands in the middle. It's very Sidney Jones-esque as far as what his actual production has been, and and probably where his expectations are. The intriguing part about Witherspoon is 6'2", runs well, athletic, and I know you didn't always see that. I mean, it's about covering. It's not about your speed and all that stuff. He got beat a few times in the preseason here, but he has the tools to develop. And again, it's another. Seattle has a whole bunch of these low risk type of plays. It's unexciting because it really brings. There's a lot of unknown here with Witherspoon, with the Sidney Jones, even with the DJ Reed. So it'll be an interesting season, I think, for Seattle, but the potential is certainly there with all of these guys, because they've all played some pretty good football at certain points in their careers.
Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. You can subscribe there, and if you're a football fan, you've got to be subscribing to PFF, PFF.com. This year brought to you by our good friends at No Lie Brewing, No Lie Brew House there, located on the Spokane River. Again, we'll be there 1 to 3 on Friday. Hope to see some folks, if you're listening on the iHeartRadio app on the east side of the state, swing on by, say hello on Friday afternoon. I'm going to ask an overall defensive question, because I'm not going to go through every player, but one other specific player I want to hit on before I kind of get your overall thoughts on, now that we kind of look at Seattle's defense and what we're looking at, and that would be Quandre Diggs. He is holding in / whatever he's doing, his stand-in, kind of he's taking over the role that was previously held by Jamal Adams in the secondary, watching practice in sweats with a jersey on. It's
an official position now.
God, it is, man. What and Dwayne Brown the same way. With Quandre Diggs, you guys had him ranked 52nd out of 94 safeties last season, yet he was a Pro Bowler. He was really good against the run, according to PFF. Not so good in coverage. Just a thought on where Quandre Diggs, in your mind, just overall, where does Quandre Diggs stack up with other safeties around the NFL?
I think he's a solid, probably slightly above average safety. And again, last year he had 5 interceptions, 4 pass breakups. A lot of times, postseason awards, you take 1,100 snaps and you boil it down to those 9 plays, and you say, oh look, he made some plays, right? Or he had a bunch of tackles, right? So for us, grading every single player on every play, when guys are out of position or they miss tackles or they bust a coverage or get beat or whatever it might be, all that stuff gets added in there as well. So I think he's a solid player. He can make plays on the ball. I think he's been, just a good, solid free safety. That is what he is. But the grades have fluctuated just a little bit over these last couple of years. They do land probably to that right above average mark, though, when you're projecting them going forward.
I'm going to ask Kevin something real quick, because I think what you said there was really important. He had a lot of interceptions last season. Those are like pop plays, right? They're like plays, and then Kevin and I have talked about this, Steve, on the air a lot, just from being out at camp. I've been watching. He is a really popular player. I wonder if, I'm thinking out loud, I wonder if you have a guy that has maybe an inflated sense of who and what he is. Interceptions make, kind of puff your chest out as a DB. Popular guy in the locker room. His buddy Jamal held out. Kevin, do you see where I'm tracking here? I listened to Steve break that down. We have a pretty good safety, but not a guy that that thinks he should be holding in right.
So you're saying if we maybe turned those interceptions and maybe turned that key and turned it into sacks and talked about just 9 specific plays where something significant happened, and all of a sudden we think that's the value of a player? Is that what you're saying?
Steve, are we talking about Jamal Adams here?
There might be some elements there. Like any of those back 7 players, it's fascinating. Linebackers, he had 100 tackles and it's 4 sacks and 2 picks, and it looks great, but there's so much more to the position than those few splash plays.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Not every tackle is made the same. We've talked about that. I mean, God bless him, he's out for the season. Ben Burke-Irvin, I mean, he was a tackling machine in the first preseason game like he was in college, but most of those times you see it 8 yards down the field and you see the nameplate. Like, that's not the same as a Bobby Wagner meeting you in the gap, right? It's a little different. Not all tackles are created the same. Overall, I look at this defense. Just your quick thoughts. I don't think there's any surprises in what they did roster-wise. The defensive line, I think we feel is deeper with guys like Hyder, Dunlap all season. They bring in Al Woods. Just a quick thought from you as far as PFF is concerned on the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't want to use the word volatile, but I think it can go either way. I think a lot of pressures on the coaches to fit the pieces in here. I look at that secondary that we just discussed. Again, all of those players have played good football at various points in their career. How are they going to be deployed? How is Jamal going to be deployed this year? Are they going to be a blitz-heavy team like they were at times last year? They'll have to be if some pass rushers don't step up. So I'm looking at this as a unit. I think there's going to be a big trickle-down effect if they don't get more from Carlos Dunlap and Darrell Taylor and some of the Alton Robinson and the guys that they've drafted over the last couple of years. If they can't get after the quarterback more efficiently, see how creative they get. They've got some good, solid pieces, but I can't wait to see how those pieces fit in because I think the coaches have some work to do to pull it all together.
And that's a key thing, though. Like we always talk about that, and we'll talk about that throughout the year. It's not just the sack numbers; it's the efficiency. And how many times? And Steve's talked about that so many times. Steve Palazzolo, PFF. Offense, no big surprises. Although what you and I thought might happen never came to fruition. They're going to keep Damian Lewis at guard. He's at left guard. We assume next to Dwayne Brown when he decides he's going to actually decide to play. We think that Kyle Fuller is going to be the center over Ethan Posick, Gabe Jackson, and Brandon Shell, your offensive line, and then you've got Wilson and Carson, the 2 elite receivers. Overall thoughts on this offense?
Yeah, I can't wait to see how the scheme looks. And I know during the preseason, as I was watching them the other night very closely, going through the plays, and I was like, man, there are a lot of opportunities for running backs in this offense. And I don't know if that was just the Mannionization of the offense. I don't know if that was just a Mannion thing. But Geno was doing it too. I mean, the Seahawks threw to backs. The 3rd highest percentage of their targets this preseason went to running backs. And that's one of those things I'm wondering is having answers beyond DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Of course, having Dwayne Eskridge drafted there. I think that was a part. I keep saying I think they want to have a more horizontal passing attack than what they've had, just to add that flexibility. So I can't wait to see all that. But you've got that core, right? You've got Russ, you've got DK, you have Tyler Lockett. I think the offensive line is going to be okay as far as pass pro goes, just like they were last year. I'm interested to see what they think, where the 3rd option comes from beyond the receivers. Is it the backfield as a whole? Is it Gerald Everett trying to get him in space in this offense? Is it Eskridge? Do they try to get a little bit more horizontal and work the underneath game? So that's what I can't wait to see is just what this offense looks like. But the pieces, of course, are in place to have one of the league's best.
I just loved what I saw. I mean, you saw a glimpse of Eskridge. Eskridge went up high on the one pass play. Geno kind of went a little high on it, made a great snap. I mean, just a great ball skill. High point of that ball is beautiful play by him. His ability to go, basically east to west, west to east. I mean, it was kind of nice to see him go, sideways a little bit. And then, you can get vertical in terms of the other side of things. I'm excited to watch him play. I would guess, Steve, that 3rd option is going to be a different guy every game. It might be Carson, it might be DJ Dallas, it might be Alex Collins, it might be Gerald Everett, it might be D. Eskridge. I think it feels like they have more weapons than they had a year ago.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, the thing I say repeatedly about the NFL is having options, right? It's having answers to what defenses throw at you. And I'll keep coming back to the Rams took away the deep ball because that's what they did. They took the deep ball away better than any team in the NFL. And when a team does that, if they take away your 1 and 2, you got to have 3, 4, and 5 ready. Or you have to have the run game ready. You have to have answers to what the defense throws at you. So it does look like Seattle at least has the pieces to be a little bit more well-rounded this year.
Well, Steve, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to talk to you every week this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really was a blast last year. I think we learned a lot. I know I learned a lot having you on every week, and PFF is go-to for me right now, and I hope it is for everybody else. I'll let you go ahead and pump up the website, including what you got going on for fantasy football, because there are drafts aplenty taking place right now.
Yeah, we have a great deal going, actually. 30% off all of our subscriptions using Kickoff30, the promo code Kickoff30. So you can get all of our fantasy tools for as little as $7, and it's just what I use to go draft. Just check out our rankings and go. So it's all at pff.com.
It is our good friend, Steve Palazzolo, pff.com, and we will be talking to Steve every Wednesday throughout the season right here on 950 KGR, brought to you by No Lie Brewing. Steve, we'll talk to you in a week's time, and we'll preview the Colts and the Hawks next Wednesday.
All right, can't wait. Football season, guys. Appreciate it.
It's here. There you go. That's Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus. We'll take a break. When we come back, how about this? We'll talk a little bit about what the baseball team did today. Timing interesting. Decision. Do we agree with both? Can we agree with one and not the other? I'm not sure if we can. I do. I mean, sure. You know what? We could do anything. It's sports radio.
You're the boss.
I'm not the boss. I just said we could do anything. We'll talk about that next.
Dell's Labor Day event has limited quantity deals and up to $300 off select PCs powered by Intel Core processors, plus free shipping on everything. Call 800-BY-DELL.
September 7th, it's your chance at a weekly $1,000 prize and a grand prize of $10,000. All on your home for college football Saturdays and the NFL. Sports Radio 950, KJR.
Well, we are delighted today to announce that Jerry DiPoto has agreed to become the president of baseball operations for the Seattle Mariners, and that he in turn has extended his contract for multiple years, and that Scott Service has agreed to a multi-year extension to his contract. I believe that this puts us in a position to achieve our mission and goal as the Seattle Mariners, to win championships and to do everything we can to win on the field.
Grateful and excited I am to get the opportunity to continue in this seat in Seattle with the Mariners. Getting an opportunity here in Seattle when I'd never managed before 6 years ago was really special.
Scott Service, the second voice, first one John Stanton, the majority owner of the Mariners, making those announcements today. Scott Service, contract extension for the Mariners manager, and Jerry DiPoto, not just an extension but also a promotion in terms of title. Now the president of baseball operations. I kind of think he was already doing that, but they gave him a nice little title. It's the corporate way. Give you a little bump. Give you a little bump in title. Better business card. Congrats.
That's how I understand that situation too. Whatever. His role isn't changing, but he was the number one man in charge of baseball, and he is now the number one man in charge of baseball.
All right. Some thoughts here on where we're at with that. And 2016 is when they brought these guys in, 2015, but 2016 the first season. They have finished, and these are games out of first place, 9, 23, 14, 39, 9. Right now they're 7.5 out. So no division titles in the years that the twosome has been here. And if we're honest, not even close to a division title since they've been here. Now, yeah, Houston's been great during that time. Oakland's been great during that time, but it's pro sports. Like, you're paid to win. They are in a playoff race in September right now. There is a thought that they're, quote, doing it the right way, which I'm going to get to in a second. First of all, I love the fact Service is coming back and is still here. It's just obvious from watching how this team plays that, and Nathan and Chris and our Mollywops talk about it all the time. I mean, Chris knows rosters more than anybody in terms of young guys and development and all that. They don't have a lot. Like, if we're really being honest, they don't have a lot out there.
Their major league roster is not great.
It's not great, and yet they're there. They're competing. They're 3.5 out of the second wild card spot, and they're competing, and they're going to make September, at least the first part of September. Right now, as it stands, it's relevant. DiPoto is an interesting one to me because I think we look at it. To me, I look at a general manager's job in baseball. It's probably almost threefold. It's drafting and player development. And I think that's all encompassing there. I think it's player acquisitions from wherever else, and that would be free agents, other teams, trades, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. And then it's free agency as a whole. Targeting, finding, and bringing in free agents in the offseason. And I think if you look at kind of the overall scope of things, he's done a really good job of one of the three. They've done a terrific job of finding guys that nobody else maybe wanted or that they could acquire for a relatively cheap price, or in the case of the Cano trade, dealing a bad contract away, and they've done a nice job there. But they haven't developed a position player. Look at their roster right now. This is they've been here since 2016. Murphy, no. France, no. Moore, Crawford, Seager was already here. Fraley, Kelnick, not your guy initially. Haniger, trade. Torrens acquired cheaply, right? Cheap. The France Torrens trade was a great one when you look at it.
Sure.
It's a terrific trade. They haven't. Kyle Lewis was their first ever number one pick. You go through the drafts. They haven't had anybody make it through yet. This offseason, to me, service 100%. Dipoto, I guess you kind of have to go down that road, and you have to kind of bring them back. But boy, they better make this offseason worthwhile. Because they just, Nate and Chris talk about it. We talk about it, every other Monday. You and I have talked about it as well. You just said it. Their roster isn't good.
Yeah.
And so, all the hoopla. Last night was awesome. To have a guy hit a grand slam to win a game off a guy you traded him for.
That's theater it's almost hard to believe it could happen.
And so the next day you have a press conference and announce these extensions.
Yeah.
Awesome. The timing's great, except for it's a day game and it's weird. You don't really get the pop. Probably you could have, but nevertheless, that stuff's just us media guys going, what? Really? It's weird timing. But last night was great theater, as Kevin said, and it's a great emotional lift. I'm not sold on Dipoto. I'm just not, Kevin, because it's still a results-based business, and I think the manager has done a lot with very little, and I think the general manager, whether his hands have been tied or not, I'm just not sure that they've done a good enough job yet.
I think one of the interesting things for me is that I don't feel like he has made bad signings.
So they haven't gone out and spent money unwisely.
Right.
Right.
And that's not spending a bunch of money, and I think you can generally say they haven't gone out and spent a bunch of money on free agents and things like that. Mm-hmm. Certainly makes it so that you can't be attacked for spending a bunch of money wrong.
Right.
Because I think that's the number one thing for a general manager. The easiest thing when you're judging how good a job a general manager is doing is to look at big contracts and say, that was terrible. Right?
Yep.
Jack Zarenzik took big swings with big contracts, and because of that, we're able to look back and say, you did terribly with those.
Right.
That's just something we can do. So we haven't really seen that yet with Dipoto. So the only thing we've really seen with him is drafting and trading, right?
Yep.
And for the most part, I think you would give him a better than average grade to this point on that.
Not on drafting.
Overall,
on the second half, yes.
Right. But I would even say, drafting and trading, I think even overall, drafting, because of where a general manager is also going to be evaluated based on what is in their system.
But Kevin, among their everyday guys, if you want to count Kyle Rowley, he's the only guy that's an everyday guy he's drafted.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, since 2016.
But what I'm saying is
16, 17, 18, 19, 25 drafts.
Yeah, I hear you. What I'm saying is, you're already in this deep with him. You have to at least let something come to fruition.
Agree.
So in that way,
100%.
You had to do that.
Yeah.
What we need to see now is, okay, if you can get us to that, the precipice. Can you get us over the top when you are given a checkbook and said, okay, finish the job?
Well,
and now we need to see that.
Since they didn't carry the press conference today, it was hard to hear what was said. But I wonder, was a question asked to Stanton? Are you going to spend money?
It's asked every time. I would assume that I will go back and check and see.
Yeah, because you're right, Kev. So, I mean, we're splitting the job up in 3 ways, 2 ways, 4 ways.
Sure.
His drafting, to me, hasn't been worth a crap. Cal Raleigh's the only guy that's right there sitting there that's your guy. I mean, Fraley's not your guy. Dylan Moore's not your guy. Not like those guys are good. I mean, they're not winning championships with those guys. I mean,
I don't know how early
the Kelnick thing is still. I know everyone wants to be very careful and cautious. I get it. I mean, he's an automatic out in your lineup right now. He's the number 9 guy in a Little League roster. You don't want him playing, but you have to play him.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot left to be said about where this team is. It's a huge offseason. We'll continue those thoughts in a second, get to something good as well. Some guy named Holmgren, Mike, 2 o'clock on 950 KJR.
The Emerald Queen Casino Fact or Fiction returns Tuesday, September 7th. It's your chance at a weekly $1,000 prize and a grand prize of $10,000. All on your home for college football Saturdays and the NFL. Sports Radio 950, KJR.
You betcha. We'll talk more about that at 2:35 today.
It's coming.
Awesome time of year. One of my favorite things. So we were just talking about, what's next in terms of spending and off seasons and things like that. No, we still have a season to play. I get all those things, but this is an enormous off season for the Mariners, and it feels like we say that every year with the football team. Big off season for the Seahawks. What are they going to do here, and here? It's not often we say there's a huge off season for the Mariners because we just never have known where they're at, right? We've never really known who and what they were. Rebuilding, not rebuilding, reimagining, not reimagining, see us rise, don't see us rise, whatever it might be. But I think we all agree that this is a huge offseason. If truly you're making inroads and trying to take steps forward, then you've got to take that next step, and that's add to payroll. At the impromptu Behind the Batting Cage news conference today, from the Seattle Times, Ryan Divish asked some of those questions to Jerry Dipoto.
Jerry, part of the timeline to success was investing, in the big league club at a certain point. Are you at that point, and have you received assurances that this is the next step for you guys?
We always knew that was going to be the case. Part of this was trading off veteran players for young players that we could build with and around, understanding that through salary arbitration and with the payroll flexibility that we were creating, we were going to have a chance to augment that team in smart ways once we identified where the needs were. And over these last 2.5 years, now going on 3 years, I think we've done a better job of identifying. We've also filled in a lot of those spaces with young players who we intend to be here for a long time. And we do have, a next wave or waves that we believe are going to continue to flood our system. But we do understand where we can go either through trade or free agency, make this team better in the short term, and we'll take we'll be opportunistic once the season starts, and we've always had the freedom to do that.
Okay, before we comment, let's hear this. Matt Calkins, also from the Times, their columnist, talking to John Stanton.
You've said before that when the time is right, you're going to make the move and spend the money. I think right now you're 26th in payroll. What would you say to fans who are like, yeah, this team's rolling, this team's exceeding expectations. We're still waiting for that whale or two to come to put us over the edge.
Well, Jerry's a baseball expert, and I rely on Jerry to make baseball decisions, and he has our confidence and has had the resources and will continue to have the resources necessary to execute and achieve the goal.
Okay, so he's got the resources, has had the resources to execute the goal. So I take that as meaning go out and get what you need this offseason, right?
I mean, but the cynic would say, okay, well, if he has had the resources,
right,
then
Dipoto kind of hedged it because he said, we've been working on through salary arbitration and trying to get ourselves basically saying we're getting ourselves stabilized and set up. And then he went on to say then we're going to basically have a chance to go ahead. Okay, so if I combine what those two guys said is they've put themselves in a position to go become players in the offseason. I don't buy what Dipoto says about having, has filled in all these gaps with guys going to be here for a long time. We've done that before. We've done that exercise on 2 or 3 Mondays, placeholder or project or whatever we call it, right? I mean, Murphy, no. Torrens is a utility guy. I guess you could call him a catcher, right? I mean, no. I mean, what is he? Ty France, I think, is a first baseman for you, right?
I guess so.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have a big sample size on that yet, but what we've seen, sure, yeah, I think so.
Toro, yes, maybe.
I guess I question that too. I mean, that's
Crawford.
Yeah.
Seager, if you exercise the option.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one.
Okay, and then what's your outfield if you don't bring Haniger back?
Well, Ian, they didn't need to make a move for an outfielder because they're already set.
I watched Dylan Moore look like a little leaguer, and a bad little leaguer at that on Tuesday or Monday night. Like, no. Like, I just, I think what they do is Jerry Dipoto, Zorinsek did a great job of this too. Like, Zorinsek was the king of this. And I bought into it. We all did. Every one of us did. When Zorinsek spoke, he would come on the radio or do a press conference, and he would say a lot of words, and he would convince you by the end that they are dialed in and on the right track and everything else.
Well, the interesting thing,
they never were.
What Zorinsek and Dipoto do differently than what the guy in the football side and the general manager thing. After you talk to them, you actually do feel like you've gotten some insight.
Right.
And you feel like, okay, well, I can sort of see that. You don't get any of that from Schneider.
No.
He is not interested in sharing any information with anyone
100%.
ever.
Yep.
So they do, and we've heard some things about maybe they're not the most wonderful people in the backgrounds, but like Dipoto, when he talks to the media, you generally get the feeling that you're getting some decent insight, and you're like, all right, well, yeah, I can sort of see that.
Well, not only insight, I just think he does a good job of selling nonsense. I mean, I think he sells you into, he gets you to, and I like I said, I've bought it a bunch of times. I think he gets you into buying that. Yeah, they're going in the right direction. The problem is that when you, again, just look at the outfield if nothing else. Like, look at the outfield. Is that a playoff outfield this year or next?
It's the problem, and we got a couple texts, and we'll get to those later. But it is the problem with putting stock in the great farm system.
Right.
And what we saw in this trade deadline is that, okay, we have this great farm system, and everyone's saying it's great, but at the first opportunity to use it, when you had a team that you could have improved, you chose not to.
And as Chris Crawford pointed out on Monday, it wouldn't have been that hard to improve your team without even gutting your roster or your farm system. And they didn't do that. I just feel like it's always pushing the goalpost back and the goal back and all those things. And the COVID was a great opportunity to do that because it's obvious you lost a year of true development. Sure, absolutely. I think Kelnick and Cal Raleigh are great proof of that. I mean, they're probably proof positive of that. But I don't know there's anything that tells me Cal Raleigh is going to be, an everyday catcher that you can count on. I mean, he worked a walk was it last night or the night before that was miraculous because he swings. He's a first pitch, bad pitch swinger half the time, and it's no doubt he's hitting 120 or whatever the hell it is right now.
Yeah.
1 home run, 11 RBIs as much as he's played. Come on. I mean, the LOB, left on base, not Legion of Boom, for him and Kelnick, I bet if you'd be hard pressed to find two other guys in the league that have a higher one right now. But 49451. We'll check your text coming up on there. Mike Holmgren. He's going to have to answer for some things. I'm not sure what. Holmgren joins us, the Ring of Honor inductee, next.